Have you ever wondered what happens in a woman's mind when she realizes she let a good man slip away? When she finally understands that the guy she barely noticed, the one who was always there, was actually exactly what she needed all along? I'm about to take you inside the female psychology of regret and realization. This isn't about revenge or manipulation. It's about understanding the very human tendency we all have to overlook what's readily available while chasing what seems just out of reach. Last month, I received a text that made me understand this psychology completely. It was from someone I hadn't heard from in 2 years. I've been thinking about how differently I would handle things if I could go back. You deserved so much better than how I treated you. Today, I'm breaking down the psychological process that leads to these moments of clarity. The stages a woman goes through when she realizes she took a good man for granted. This isn't about getting revenge or winning someone back. It's about understanding human psychology so you can recognize your own worth and make better choices moving forward. Let's dive deep into the mind of regret. Stage 1. The comfort zone trap. The first stage happens while the relationship is still active, but it's the foundation for everything that follows. It's what psychologists call hedonic adaptation, the human tendency to quickly adjust to positive changes and take them for granted. When a woman first meets a genuinely good man, she notices everything: his thoughtfulness, his reliability, his consistent affection. These qualities feel special, rare, exciting. But here's where human psychology works against appreciation. The more consistently someone treats you well, the more normal it starts to feel. Think about your first day at a new job versus your 100th day. Initially, you notice everything: the office layout, your co-workers' personalities, the company culture. But after a few months, it all becomes background noise. The same thing happens in relationships. I watched this play out with my friend David and his girlfriend Michelle. David was incredibly thoughtful. He'd bring her coffee every morning, listen patiently to her work stress, plan thoughtful dates, remember every important detail she shared. For the first few months, Michelle was constantly telling her friends how amazing he was. But gradually, his consistency became invisible to her. The morning coffee became expected rather than appreciated. His emotional support became normal rather than special. His thoughtful gestures became routine rather than romantic. This is the comfort zone trap. When someone is consistently good to you, your brain starts to categorize their behavior as baseline normal rather than exceptional. You stop seeing their efforts as choices they're making and start seeing them as just how they are. During this stage, women often start looking elsewhere for excitement, novelty, or validation. Not because the good man has done anything wrong, but because familiarity breeds a kind of psychological blindness. They begin to notice what he doesn't do rather than what he does do. "He's so predictable," she might tell her friends. "He never surprises me anymore." What she's really saying is that she's adapted to his goodness to the point where it no longer registers as special. The psychology here is crucial to understand. This isn't a character flaw specific to women. Men do this too. Humans have a built-in tendency to adapt to positive circumstances and start taking them for granted. It's an evolutionary mechanism that helped our ancestors avoid complacency. But in modern relationships, it often causes us to undervalue exactly what we should treasure most. The woman in this stage doesn't yet realize what she's doing. She's not consciously choosing to take him for granted. She's simply fallen victim to the psychological trap of adaptation. She's comparing his consistent goodness to an imaginary standard rather than to the reality of what most relationships actually offer. This stage can last months or even years, with the good man continuing to invest while feeling increasingly unappreciated, and the woman unconsciously expecting more and more while noticing less and less of what she's actually receiving. Stage 2. The absence revelation. The second stage begins the moment he's no longer there. Whether he finally sets boundaries, focuses his attention elsewhere, or leaves the relationship entirely, his absence creates what psychologists call a contrast effect. Suddenly, life without his presence highlights exactly what his presence provided. This is where the psychology gets fascinating. The same brain that adapted to his consistency now has to readjust to his absence. All those things she stopped noticing, the emotional support, the thoughtful gestures, the reliable presence, suddenly become glaring gaps in her daily experience. I saw this happen with Michelle after David finally reached his breaking point. He didn't make a big dramatic exit. He simply stopped initiating contact and started investing his energy elsewhere. Within 2 weeks, Michelle was calling her friends asking, "Why do I feel like something's missing?" The morning coffee was gone. No one was asking about her stressful presentation. No one was planning thoughtful weekend activities. No one was listening patiently to her daily venting sessions. The absence of these things felt more noticeable than their presence ever had. This is the psychological phenomenon of loss aversion combined with impact bias. Loss aversion means we feel the pain of losing something more intensely than we felt the pleasure of having it. Impact bias means we underestimate how much we'll miss something until it's actually gone. During this stage, women often experience a range of confusing emotions. Irritation. Why isn't he texting me like he used to? This is annoying. Confusion. I thought I wanted more space, so why do I feel lonely? Restlessness. Everything feels off, but I can't figure out why. Nostalgia. Remember when David used to plan those cute date nights? The key insight is that she's not yet connecting these feelings to his absence. She knows something feels different, but she hasn't made the full psychological connection between his reduced presence and her increased discomfort. This stage often involves her reaching out in small ways, casual texts, mentions of shared memories, questions about his life. She's unconsciously testing to see if his attention is still available on demand. When it's not, the contrast becomes even more stark. Many women describe this stage as feeling like something's off in their life, but they can't quite put their finger on what it is. They might even start dating other people, only to find that new guys don't provide the same sense of emotional security and consistency they had grown accustomed to. The absence revelation doesn't happen all at once. It's usually a gradual dawning awareness that life felt more stable, comfortable, and supportive when he was fully present. This realization sets the stage for the more intense emotions that follow. Stage 3. The comparison trap. The third stage is where the real psychological shift happens. As she starts dating other men or simply observing other relationships, she begins to understand just how rare the qualities she took for granted actually are. This is the comparison trap, where she measures new experiences against the baseline he established. The psychology here is brutal, but predictable. When someone treats you consistently well, you start to believe that's the standard everyone will meet. Only when you encounter people who don't meet that standard do you realize how exceptional the original treatment was. I remember talking to a woman who had let go of a genuinely good relationship. 6 months later, she told me, "I went on 3 dates with this new guy, and by the 3rd date, I realized he hadn't asked me a single meaningful question about my life. David used to ask me about everything, my work, my family, my dreams. I thought that was normal behavior, but apparently it's not." This stage involves several painful realizations. Reliability is rare. New men cancel plans, show up late, or are inconsistent with communication. She starts to remember how the good man was always reliable, always kept his word, always made her feel prioritized. Emotional intelligence is uncommon. Other guys don't pick up on her moods, don't know how to comfort her when she's stressed, don't remember important details about her life. She begins to appreciate the emotional attunement she previously overlooked. Genuine interest is unusual, Many men seem more focused on physical attraction or their own interests rather than truly wanting to know her as a person. She starts to value how deeply curious and interested the good man was in her thoughts and feelings. Consistency is precious. The up and down emotional roller coaster of dating men who are hot and cold makes her nostalgic for the steady, predictable affection she once found boring. During this stage, she often finds herself saying things like, "David would never have done that," or "David always remembered when I had important meetings." She's unconsciously using him as the standard against which she measures everyone else. The comparison trap is psychologically powerful because it forces her to confront the reality of what she gave up. It's no longer about what he didn't provide, it's about recognizing what he did provide that others don't. This stage often involves a lot of internal conflict. Part of her wants to reach out and reconnect, but another part feels embarrassed about how she treated him. She might stalk his social media, ask mutual friends about him, or find excuses to be in places where she might run into him. Stage 4, the guilt and regret phase. The fourth stage is where the emotional weight really hits. Once she fully understands what she had and lost, guilt and regret flood in. This isn't just missing someone, it's the painful realization that she played a direct role in pushing away something valuable. The psychology of regret is complex. Research shows that people regret actions they didn't take more than actions they did take over time. But in relationships, the regret often focuses on how they treated someone rather than whether they made the right choice to leave. She starts replaying moments differently, conversations where she was dismissive instead of appreciative, times when she complained about his predictability instead of valuing his consistency, occasions when she took his efforts for granted instead of acknowledging them. I've heard women describe this stage as feeling like they were watching themselves be ungrateful in slow motion. "I can't believe I used to roll my eyes when he'd plan those thoughtful dates," one woman told me. "I thought he was trying too hard, but now I realize he was just trying to make me happy." The guilt manifests in several ways. Self-criticism. "How could I have been so blind? What's wrong with me?" Shame. "I don't deserve someone that good. I proved that by how I treated him." Sadness. "I threw away something beautiful because I didn't recognize its value." Anxiety. "What if I never find someone who cares about me like that again?" This stage often involves her wanting to reach out and apologize, not necessarily to get him back, but to ease her own guilt and acknowledge his worth. She might send long texts explaining her realization, write letters she never sends, or confide in friends about her regrets. The psychological pain of this stage comes from a specific type of regret called upward counterfactual thinking, imagining how much better things could have been if she had acted differently. She's not just missing him, she's mourning the version of the relationship that could have existed if she had been more appreciative. Many women describe this as one of the most painful learning experiences of their lives. It's the moment they truly understand that good men aren't common, that consistent love isn't boring, and that taking someone for granted can cost you everything you didn't realize you wanted to keep. Stage 5. The idealization effect. The fifth and final stage is where memory and regret combine to create an idealized version of both the man and the relationship. This is where psychology gets really interesting. The same brain that once adapted to his goodness now amplifies it in his absence. Psychologists call this rosy retrospection, the tendency to remember past events more positively than they actually were. But in this case, it's not just rose-colored glasses. She's genuinely seeing his value clearly for the first time, without the filter of familiarity that previously made his efforts invisible. During this stage, she often talks about him as the one who got away, or the best man she ever knew. She might even contact him months or years later to tell him how much he meant to her and how differently she would handle things now. I received one of these messages myself. 2 years after a relationship ended, I got a text that said, "I've been in therapy working on why I push away good people, and I keep coming back to how I treated you. You were everything I said I wanted, but I couldn't see it at the time. I hope you found someone who appreciates you the way you deserve." The idealization effect involves several psychological processes. Selective memory. She remembers his best qualities more vividly while forgetting any minor irritations or conflicts. Contrast enhancement. Compared to other relationships she's experienced since, his positive qualities seem even more exceptional. Growth perspective. As she's matured and learned more about relationships, she can better appreciate the sophisticated emotional skills he possessed. Scarcity awareness. Having searched for similar qualities in other men and found them rare, she now understands his uniqueness. This stage can be bittersweet for both people involved. She's finally seeing him clearly, but often it's too late. He's usually moved on, either emotionally or to someone else who recognizes his worth from the beginning. The idealization effect can last for years. Some women carry the memory of the good man they let go as a standard for future relationships. Others use it as motivation for personal growth, working to become the kind of person who would recognize and appreciate such qualities in the moment, rather than in hindsight. If this video resonated with you, subscribe for more content on relationship psychology and personal growth. Share your own experiences in the comments. Have you been on either side of this dynamic? What did you learn? The goal isn't to judge anyone's journey, but to understand human psychology well enough to make more conscious choices in our relationships. Until next time, value what you have and surround yourself with people who value you.